Welcome to the GameChanger 00100 pre-recorded show. I'm your host, GameChanger. Okay, so I was watching Chantel's earlier, and yeah, she brings up some interesting points, and that is how a lot of these relationship conversations are getting played. They're getting old, they're getting redundant, and they're very surface level, and they're not really going into the depth of the problem. And there was a little confusion as to why. So I'm going to get into that now. Like, why do we as Black people, both men and women, continue with these pointless conversations? And yeah, I'm definitely going to cover that. The three that she brought up that she's saying is redundant are 50-50, coffee dates, and what do man or woman, bring to the table. Now, here's the thing about each of these. I mean, you have to find a common denominator when you're dealing with, any type of problem like this. I mean, in math, you want to, if you're going to do arithmetic with fractions, you want to find a common denominator. That's definitely necessary. The common denominator of all of these three things is a man qualifying himself to a woman. You see, just by having the 50-50 conversation, the coffee dates conversation, the what do you bring to the table conversation, is really, the conversation is of the tone of, am I qualified enough? Is 50-50 enough? Is 50% enough? Is coffee enough? Is what I'm bringing to the table, which is really a subset of the two. When you think about it, like, is coffee enough to bring to the table? Is 50-50 enough to bring to the table? So yeah, or I should say it's a superset of both of them, because, they fall under those categories. It's really just men attempting to qualify themselves to women, and women determining if the man is qualified or not. That is where a lot of Black relationship people want to keep the conversation, and for a very good reason. In fact, I listed them, why they want to keep it on that level. And this is particularly the women, because they're driving it, and the men who are doing it are really just doing it to appeal to the women, not for their own, not to increase their roster or their rotation or whatnot. But I'm pretty sure that that's a motivation too, but really just to increase their subscriber base, their clicks and views, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because Black women have a very strong sense of groupthink, which means that once you are approved by this particular group, the sisterhood groupthink, then it's a very large audience who come and listen to the same person. They bring very large audiences with them. So you're going to get, and if somebody believes that these conversations is what brings the girls to the yard, they're going to do that. The men are going to do that. Now, the reason why these topics come up, first, group manipulation. Group manipulation. You see, these are what's called, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, wedge issues. And when I say group manipulation, I'm not talking about the content creators, the TikTokers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really the audience that want to drive these conversations, because what they're doing is what the women are doing. And I said this before in previous videos, but what they're doing is they're annihilating the competition. They're essentially saying, like, listen, you go out and don't accept coffee dates. Don't accept this, and this. Don't accept 50-50. Don't. We're going to fight on this tooth and nail. And while you're fighting, you are eliminating competition. You are eliminating yourself as competition for the women who don't care about stuff like that. Ever notice how, and this is funny because this is one of the three issues, they brag about their wealth, even though they're the poorest ethnic gender group in the country. But they brag about their wealth, how much they make. You had the dog groomer on Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, talked about how she earns this amount and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So on one hand, you have that group of women who really feel perfectly fine going 50-50 in a relationship because they have it like that. And they want a man that can also go 50-50 with them. So you have that particular group of women. And then you have women who are telling women, don't go 50-50, don't go 50-50. That is because the average at best girl, she can now say, I bring 50%. These other girls aren't bringing 50%. I'm bringing 50%. I groom dogs. So it's a setup. These women, B-dubs have been, their mating strategy collectively is rooted in manipulation. That's why you have things like leverage the box, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's rooted in manipulation. Which brings me to the second issue, deflection. Okay, so if you can't have cloak and dagger without a cloak, meaning that you have to have some form of, you have to have a cloud of deceit. You have to have like an air of deceit when you're doing something like that. And an air of manipulation, a distraction, I guess is the best word for it. These conversations is meant to distract what's really going on. As she was saying, that these are surface level conversations, meaning that there is something beneath the surface. But if you don't want to explore what's beneath the surface, then you have, then you're going to continue, you're going to keep the conversations on the surface. Okay, I've seen this play out in real life, right? Years ago in college, I was with a girl, and I was in her dorm, and she had some studying to do, but so did her roommate. And her roommate, she wanted the stapler, but I think that the stapler belonged to the roommate, and she was going to take it with her to the library. The roommate was going to take it with her to the library. But so what she did was, she engaged in like small talk conversation, all while standing between the girl and the stapler, hoping that the other girl would forget. And she did. The other girl was so caught up in the surface level conversation that she didn't realize that she was trying to yoink her stapler for the night, and then when she said that, when she told me what she was doing, she was like, yeah, I got the stapler. I was like, oh, wow. Now I know that you're deceitful. You probably shouldn't have told me that, because I didn't even know. I thought y'all were just having like a regular chit chat, girl talk type thing. I didn't know that that's how your mind worked. But anyway, it was funny, but the tactic is sound. The tactic is, distract with surface level BS so they can miss the real deceit. Now, what is the real deceit that they are trying to hide? The real deceit is that what they're trying to hide, what's beneath the surface that they're trying to hide, is that they underperform in every area of femininity that exists collectively. And we're talking things like motherhood. We're talking things like, submission, obedience, fitness, health, nutrition, ability to keep the family together, ability to raise the children to maximize their potential. Well, that falls under the motherhood category. We're talking about all of these things. There is a lacking, and not only is there a lacking, on a collective scale, the individuals who do lack, they want to keep the conversation on that, because if the conversation went just a little bit deeper, then you start to pick at these things now. And they don't want that. And the ones who do take the conversations a little bit deeper, some of them there's one of two things. One way to take that is like, okay, maybe I should reevaluate the value that I'm giving to my mate. And another response to that is, okay, I know that I am selling garbage. So let me mask it. Let me spray perfume on it. I know it stinks. Let me spray perfume on it. So it's all part of a mask deceit. And fellas, when dealing with women, especially, many women are deceitful, so that is what it is. But you got to understand that what they say is not always what's true. Like, if you ask, and that's why these relationship coaches are really all over the place, because when you ask a woman what she wants, she'll tell you a list of things that really don't mean nothing. The last guy she was with, don't really meet that list. Neither will the next guy. What they say is not necessarily what they mean or what they want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really just mass deception, deflection from a lot of core issues that they would rather not talk about. Unfortunate, but true. The third thing, loneliness. Now, Black women, many to no fault of their own, have found themselves, I don't want to say lonely, because they have each other, they're united in their loneliness, but definitely absent the level of both individual male attention and group male attention that they crave so much. They do. This is for a number of reasons. I can make separate videos to go into depth of why. But the truth of the matter is that their mating strategy requires that they invoke desperation amongst a population, which means that for a significant amount of time they avoid men. That's their mating strategy. They avoid men for in their lives for a particularly long period of time. That's why they get married later in life, with hopes that by the time that it's over, the guy will pretty much take anything. And it has seen some progress. I have seen relationship pairings, particularly women in their 40s with children and stuff like that, getting with finding husbands at that stage in their life. That's because, they were able to instill desperation in this man over a prolonged period of time. And, he's at that point willing to take anything. So there is a there with that mating strategy. And that's what they hope for from a very young age. Now, in doing this, and what's happening now on a mass scale, is that because it requires a lot of direct and indirect rejection in order to pull this off, that men, Black men, white men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they're not really approaching, because the rejection rate amongst them is very high. And as a result of this, they're not getting the attention that they want. Okay, for example, right? And men, we all have like an internal mathematics system. People don't really speak about it, but like when you catch a ball, a baseball or something like that, Your brain, you don't see the numbers and stuff like that, but your brain is measuring the speed, velocity, and trajectory of the ball, and assuring that your hand or glove or what have you meets in that place at that right time. So there's a lot of physics and a lot of math that your brain is subconsciously doing for you, so you can do something as simple as catch a ball. And that's with everything that we do. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because that internal mathematical system goes into play when dealing with relationships, as far as calculating the probability of happiness and putting yourself in particular circumstances. Meaning, when you go out and you're looking for companionship, whether temporary or long term, and quality companionship, which could be measured in a number of ways, but let's just stick with the most base way and the most common way, and quite frankly, initially the most important way to men: beauty. So a young guy, he's saying to himself, where can I go to more likely get a fit, feminine, and friendly woman for the night? It's Friday night, just got paid. It's Friday night, club is jumping, all that good stuff. Where can I go? Now, he knows that there is a deficit, at Club Keisha, there is a deficit of quality. There is. It's not much quality, and that's because of the obesity rate. That's because of the fake hair rate. That's because of the rate of cheap spray that sometimes smell like car freshening spray that they spray on their person. So he knows that, and then he knows that there is a high rejection rate for lower quality. Now, he may not have consciously, because remember, the math is done, in the background. It's done subconsciously. So, subconsciously, he's like, okay, the probability of me getting what I want from Club Keisha is this. And the probability of me getting what I want from Club Becky's is this. Or he could say the probability of me getting, what I want from any of these clubs is low. So I'm just going to stay at home and play, whatever the new popular video game is right now. Which a lot of younger men are doing nowadays. So as a result, these places are going empty, and so are these women's vaginas. Which on the surface, it seems like that's a good thing, because that's what they initially wanted. Like they went to Club Keisha to shoot down as many guys as possible, because once again, their mating strategy consists of instilling desperation in as many men as they can. So they went to Club Keisha and they walked out with nothing, and that was their plan. But they planned on getting the temporary gratification, the temporary fix of a guy approaching them, the temporary ego boost of a guy approaching them. Now, why is this important? And why did I bring this up as it relates to, the circular conversations? Because that is a substitute for that feeling. Having a guy who likely isn't interested in the girl talk about 50-50, talk about coffee dates, talk about what they bring to the table. That gives them that feeling that they get when a man actually does approach and he does attempt to qualify himself for them. It gives them that holla that feel. It makes them feel as if he's trying to negotiate for that box. And they need that feeling. And the reason that they need this feeling is because so they can justify later in life making higher demands. They need this. So it is a psychological fix that they're going for with these conversations. The more that they have these conversations, whether they're having it or not, whether they're having it, in a chat room or what have you, even still, like, hey, it's weird because they see these Cheesecake Factory videos and stuff like that, and they're like, oh yeah, they're trying to make themselves good enough for me, but they're not good enough for me, not until later in life when I'm ready and I had a bunch of kids, like that's what they're going for. They're going for that feeling. A lot of what they do is based on feelings. So, it's not going to directly make sense to a person who doesn't think that way unless he or she, particularly he, is able to understand this thinking from an external perspective. Lastly, also, and many women are doing this, they're doing it to explain their singleness. Here's what I mean by that. You have a woman who is single, and a lot of women and attractive women, especially in the Black community, are single not by choice. And they don't even know why. Now, I do, and I'll cover that in future videos, promise. They don't know why, especially when their lesser attractive counterparts are not single. They're extremely confused about the situation. And I don't blame them. But when you dig into it, their reaction to this is, I'm going to give a public justification as to why I'm single. So I am going to say something that is outlandish. And people will just attribute my relationship status to that outlandish thing versus anything that's true about myself, because these are lies. Let me be clear. All of these things, 50-50, coffee date, what do you bring to the table? These are all lies. Meaning, most women are willing to go on coffee dates, go on 50-50 dates, and they're not really concerned with the whole table thing. This whole I am the table thing. This is all crap. And the reason why it's done is to say, okay, I'm single because I refuse to settle, which is an answer that appeases the sisterhood. It makes the sisterhood feel good. It makes it like, okay, yeah, she is single for a valid reason. It's not the reason that GameChanger is going to get into in future videos. And that's to avoid, introspection. That's to avoid that particular conversation. And many times it's not even anything wrong with the woman. It's just that, I mean, it's really just that, guys don't really go to Club Keisha's like that. So there's no there's no channel, there isn't a place, there isn't a market that's built up around a lot of more decent women. Here's what I mean by that. Oh, actually, the word I'm looking for is foot traffic. There's no foot traffic, and this isn't the reason I'm going to discuss. Trust me, the reason I'm going to discuss is going to be a very complicated video. So I really gotta, up my PowerPoint skills on that one. But but this is one of the reasons. The reasons is that there's no foot traffic, meaning that there isn't a market around it. For example, say you have Friday After Next, right? And they had their little strip mall. And in the strip mall, you had the clothing store, Cat Williams clothing store. I forget what it was called. You had Holy Moly Donut Shop. And you had Brothers but Barbecue, right? And then you had, check cashing places and stuff like that, right? So you have the strip mall and people go for one thing and then they find another. And that's how malls work. That's why you have, that's why places like Target and Walmart really stand out versus places like Circuit City, Radio Shack that just sells the individual. Toys R Us. These places really had specialized goods. But foot traffic is a way to bring people to other items. So a person goes for to get their check cash and they say, oh, something, I could use a donut. Or I could use some clothes. They see that mannequin outside, they see Danya and they're like, oh yeah, let me walk into the spot here, see what they got. Or if it's later in the day, they're like, something, I'm gonna give me some barbecue. That's foot traffic. They go for one thing while they're there. They pick up on something like that. And a person could have a great barbecue shop, but if it's in the middle of nowhere and people don't have other reasons to be there, it's not going to get much foot traffic and it's not going to get much business. So now that I went through that concept real quick, excuse me. Got some lip scan. Give me a second. All right. But anyway, now that I went through that concept a little bit, unfortunately, because of the high concentration of low quality women, there's no foot traffic to the high quality Black women. Meaning that guys aren't going to go to the neighboring stores, even if your store is good along the way. Unfortunate but true. So a lot of Black women find themselves absent an avenue of finding what they're looking for in the market. And they're single for that reason. But they don't understand that. So, in order to solve a great mystery, they just say, oh, my standards are too high. They don't say that directly. They just, spout out ridiculousness. Like, oh, no, I don't accept 50-50. So that's why I'm single, because I don't accept 50-50. Or I don't go on coffee dates. Guys ask me at coffee dates. I don't, and they don't realize that what they're doing and doing this is that because now that they said it, they have to stay consistent with it, or else they're not keeping it real. And since they want to keep it real, which is foolish because they're lying to themselves and others, but they have to actually be consistent with that when somebody does come along. It's not like Evelyn K. Williams can actually date a bus driver now, even if she does find herself infatuated with one. She don't want to seem a hypocrite, so she has to keep it real and deny herself an opportunity. So, they really hurt themselves that way. But they have these surface level conversations to explain their singleness, to create this persona of, high value and high requirements. So a person can make the connection and justification of why they're single. So yeah, it's a whole nut bag of psychological reasons why these conversations happen over and over and over again. But it's definitely what all of these, a common denominator once again, is to protect from something deeper that's going on. It's a defense mechanism. So with that, I'd like to thank my members for being members. This is GameChanger 00100. Game over. Peace.